Hey guys, what's going on? Giving everybody just a couple minutes to get here, see if I can, top 5 people. And I just wanted to take some time to talk about some things. I've tried the vlogging thing, talking to the camera, and the only problem is I end up so much crap as I talk in circles and everything else that it never really makes its way into anything. And there are things I really want to discuss and talk about, and I thought that an even better platform for that, a more interactive platform, would be the live streaming. So, want to share with you guys some of the things from the past week or so, as I sit on my couch like a sexy French woman, reminiscent of Titanic. And I got Back to the Future playing on the TV. You'll have to excuse my internet. I hope this keeps up because I'm in a hotel, and this hotel internet is not known for being the most robust or reliable. So we'll see. Last week has been really good. Been really busy for me. I spent the better part of a week away from home and then got home in just enough time to pack my bags and leave again. And then after having the Dallas Sun kick my ass all weekend, get home in just enough time to do a load of laundry, pack my bag, and leave again. So I'm really looking forward to spending some time at home this weekend. But I thoroughly enjoyed last weekend. And, that's kind of, let me move here. That's really the first topic is Noobapalooza and the experience of everything that it entailed. Noobapalooza was just a name to give the weekend where a bunch of us were going to meet up and partake in some local Fort Worth things. And what it turned into was an awesome meet and greet for a bunch of different people. We got to learn a lot about each other and spend a lot of time together, not just in regards to the hobby, but personally, and, really build those relationships and in some ways reinforce those relationships. And then we got to do that over something that we all really love, something that's a big part of all of our lives, and that's drone piloting. So what's going on, Night Train and Reaper? How are you guys doing? So I'm just getting into, discussing Noobapalooza over the weekend. So let me give you guys a quick breakdown about, of course, now my phone rings. All right. Giving a good breakdown about what the weekend entailed. And it started Thursday, okay? Because all of us, except Chuck, because Chuck just runs Chuck's own schedule and he does whatever the hell he wants. So you never know where he is or when he's going to be there. So he actually came in last week kind of early. The rest of us, for those of us that don't live in Fort Worth, got in town Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening last week. And what we did was we got together and we went and had dinner that night for Ben's birthday, since Thursday was also his birthday. And we went to, I don't even remember the name of the place, but we went to a seafood place that serves, crawfish and crab legs and catfish and all kinds of other things. And so we spent the evening really just talking, hanging out, and getting to know one another, right? Because it's one thing to talk to people and meet people on here. It's another thing once you get there in person, right? And so it gave us time to acclimate to one another a little bit without also being under the pressure of flying, which was really cool, I think. So we hung out quite a bit that night, and then we went our own ways to figure out, how we were going to sleep, where all that other stuff. And Friday, we rejoined for a day of building and practice and all that stuff, right? So Friday, we kind of, between being together so much, we learned a lot about one another. And one of the things I remember most from Friday, because Thursday was really good, but it was kind of goofy and everything else too, right? One of the biggest things I remember about Friday is that open culture, right? A lot of us came with a lot of stuff, and not everybody had everything. Sometimes it was a tool, maybe it was a part. I mean, hell, you got Aaron showing up without not a single running quad. As much as it wasn't a surprise, it was just one of those things I think we hoped he had something. And so, we were all trying to get him just to get some stuff together so he had something to fly, and we were all coming up with parts just to make sure that not only did he have one, but that he had 2 or 3 running. Hopefully, that was our goal, knowing that nothing was going to last real long for him. That even turned out to be kind of a lie because he had one that lasted all day, no problem. So, but yeah, and then Friday was really just getting everything together for Saturday, right? Getting a little practice time in. And then Saturday was the race with the Fort Worth Multi-GP chapter. And that is one of the coolest things that I think we got to do while we were together. Not because of the racing aspect, but because of everything that it entails, right? So for a lot of us, it was a new thing. It was something that we hadn't done before. Because one of the favorite freestyler things to say, freestyler, okay? First of all, let's discuss what that even means. Because a lot of us will go to a park and fly circles around a tree and call it freestyle. We got to take that up a notch. We can't just be flying around bushes, and doing snap flips 300 feet in the air where we know that we're not going to crash. That's not freestyle. That's just floating around. But anytime we fly alone or anywhere that doesn't involve gates or a racetrack, we have this habit of calling it freestyle. And so a lot of us have this thing in our head of what it means to race. And, in our mind, it's going to be boring because it's only gates. How can it be more boring than flying circles around a bush, right? But we think it's going to be boring because it's flying around gates. And part of that, I think, is also being a little reserved because we're afraid that we're going to get there and we're going to look like an idiot in front of all these other people, right? And that is totally not what any race environment that I've been involved in is like. And I've been in 3, okay? I went to one last year just to go, not documented well at all, so you didn't really see much about it. I went to one a few weeks ago, and just that first clip you saw was my first race ever, okay? And we went through multiple ladders and brackets, but that was the first race ever. And I posted that for a reason, because at that race, I was flying my freestyle quad. I had a racing quad. I had it flying, but I really wasn't comfortable with it. And I just wanted to participate. So I flew what I knew I could fly. With this race at Fort Worth, it was very different. I brought my racing quad. I got it flying because I was having some other problems. I had flashed beta flight and forgot that I had to set my my motor mix and all that stuff because I have my 4-in-1 turned a little bit. Anyway, got it flying, and I was just so hard-headed. For me, it wasn't even about the participation. I wanted to use my racing quad. So not once over the course of the entire day and multiple attempts at racing did I even make it one lap around the track. And not once did I hear any ridicule from anybody. Did anybody say anything mean? Did anybody imply anything rude? In fact, I had a few people ask me if I needed something. People I don't know, let alone the people that I do know, right? Now, we got to see this in a slightly different light with a few other people, okay? You had people that, racing's stupid. It's going to be boring. I don't want to race. And everybody was just judging it right out of the gates. I think more than anything, nervous about the experience. And then you got our homeboy Plummet, right? What's Plummet do? He goes out for the first race. He comes back and he tells everybody how much he hates it and he's done and he's not going to do anymore. And the next time they call his name, you know what happened? He put his quad up there and he raced. And he continued to do that all day. And not only did that guy race every race, but he only crashed out completely in a way where he couldn't like flip over and keep flying again. He only crashed out one time in the very last race. This boy was laying down steady lap after lap. And he was getting rooted for by everybody. I mean, you had us, right? And we really had two contenders as far as we were concerned. We had Aaron and we had Adam, because everybody else was completely falling apart. We were completely dysfunctional, right? Now, Aaron is more than capable of holding his own. We all know that. We just didn't think he would be in every race or every bracket because we just knew he was going to destroy himself, right? And he didn't, which was an awesome surprise because we got to see Aaron on top of his game. And yeah, he's going to say, oh, I wasn't on top of my game because he didn't have, you know, the butter quad with all the high-end parts and all that other crap. That's not what makes you a racer or what makes you even a pilot. But anyway, then you had Adam. Adam wasn't going anywhere fast, and that's not being mean. Adam's goal was to complete, not to compete. And that boy, he did better and better every time he got around that track from his prior lap. It was so awesome. And at the end of the day, he was like, man, that was a lot of fun, right? You got him now and this other guy, and you got Night Train talking about, we got to go back to Midland, Michigan, where they're from. And we got to get a chapter started, right? Because in their heart, they may always enjoy the parks more, but what they got to see was a bunch of people who love the same thing, hanging out, helping one another, and spending time together. And it was just awesome. So, you know, that was Saturday. And then Sunday was almost a wash. It rained. And then our goal was to go to some freestyle spots, right? But you had people waking up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon with busted quads, and they hadn't had time to work on it. And so we didn't even leave to go fly something till like 5 or 6 o'clock. And so by the time we did get to a bando, Ben took us to an abandoned medical complex, which was really cool. It wasn't super huge, but it had a lot of little nooks and crannies and interesting things, right? So we all get there, and in no time flat, we're all destroying what few quads we may have running. And we did that for that night, went and had some dinner. And now, I got to give a shout out here. Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night, Matt, who owns Flylow, opened up his shop as our home base. We were allowed to go there and fix stuff, use his supplies, buy his stuff. When I say use his supplies, he wasn't just giving anything away, and nor did we expect it. But he was letting us use his tools. He had parts if we wanted to buy stuff. He was helping us. He was tutoring Chuck, kind of like walking him through how to do a proper clean build in Flylow style, right? And he was just spending this time with us and completely opened himself and everything he had open to us. I mean, this guy, you can say what you want over things we saw in the past with him. He's a good guy. And yes, the guy has a huge heart. We all have character flaws, just things that are in us, that are part of who we are, that everybody's not going to like. But you got to look at the good. And this guy he is all about the hobby. This guy loves this stuff. I mean, you get an idea when you see how meticulous his builds are and when you see that he has a business for it and all, but you don't get to see the love. That guy loves this hobby, and he is an impressive pilot. He is not the best FPV pilot, but I have never seen somebody fly line of sight like him. He is an awesome pilot. And he knows so much and has so much knowledge about the way all these things and all these pieces fit together. And he's more than willing, like none of it's a secret. He wants anybody who wants to know, who wants to use it, who wants to make use of it, he wants to tell you and teach you and show you. So I'm going to say I definitely have a new appreciation for him. I didn't necessarily like the way certain things went down in the past. And I'm not talking about between other noobs. I'm just talking about some things that happened in the Facebook group. But you know what? I will never look at him the same way after this last weekend because he is golden. He will always be on a much higher platform as far as I'm concerned. And if you want quality builds and you don't necessarily want to build it yourself, you go to him. If you want a quality build and you want somebody to show you the ropes, you go to him. We all learn things. But if you want to learn a lot, talk to Chuck it. Chuck learned a lot about quad construction directly from Matt. He worked multiple days with him. And then Monday was really just us packing up and leaving. I'm sure some of those guys were able to see each other again, but myself and Mike and Adam, we went to the airport pretty early, and I'm glad we did. It worked out pretty well, timing-wise, and we just worked our way back home. So it was a lot of stuff in one weekend, but it was so interesting. It was kind of a magical weekend. We definitely got to see a lot of personalities, right? I'm going to tell you, Mike and Adam, they are face value exactly what you get. What you see is what you get. Anybody who spent any time with Chuck, you know what you're getting. I'd like to think that with me, you didn't see anything different. Ben, golden dude. Noel is a great guy. Chris Hendershot, right? Good guy. But that's a funny one, so I'm going to call him out on this. He's super shy. Like, with Vision 1 playing. Oh, that's awesome. How you doing, Voltronics? He's super shy. So, like, for a while, we couldn't get him to come hang out with us. And then we learned it's because when he's around new people, he gets really uncomfortable. And it turns out he had some other things going on, too. But once we kind of popped his cherry and kind of just rode his ass to come on over, he just opened right up. And Chris is a great guy. He's a lot of fun to be around. He's a lot of fun to talk to. We got to eat. Oh, my God. Well, I guess that's going on the air. We got to meet Ashley and Lauren and Maddox and Phelan and got to meet Noel's son, but I forgot his name. Just the whole thing, right? I mean, you get to see these people as pilots. You get to see them as individuals and people, and then you get to see them with their families. It was great. Yeah, I got myself wondering if I want an alien, but I'm kind of stuck on Bob Rugi's frames right now. There's some things I like about him, some things I don't, but I've never had a frame that was just perfect in every way. So I guess until that happens, I'll be searching just a little bit, but I like a lot of things about Bob's frames. So yeah, that was great. And I don't think any one of our guys at the race was as uncomfortable as they thought they might be. And I think, again, even though freestyle, flying bandos and things will always be where you get the thrill, if you can go fly once a week, once every other week with a bunch of people that love to fly, who would turn that down? So anyway, that was really cool. And the Fort Worth quad racing multi-GP chapter, those guys are golden. And let me tell you, talk about putting on a professional race. That was really eye-opening to me, too, because at any given time, we were running between 4 and 8 racers at a time, right? We had a really interesting track setup. By interesting, I mean it wasn't all necessarily newbie elements, right? Because some of the tracks I've flown in the past were very, very new pilot-oriented, whereas this one, it had some interesting segments, and it had pieces pulled out of like the regional qualifiers and things like that for multi-GP, when you advance in the brackets and advance in the races. So it was really cool. And then to see the way Honey Badger would just tear around the track was so impressive. Like, you want to talk about setting the bar for a race and how to fly a track. That guy I am having a man crush on. Oh, Leprechaun, how you doing, homie? Was just talking about you. All bad, of course. But yeah, dude, Honey Badger, he is insane. And then you have people kind of incrementally the whole way down, and then you had us following up. It was just a complete mess. But what we got to see was a professional race, right? They had a timing system. They had great track layout. It wasn't a given because we had wind. Okay, keep your eye out for the videos that are going to be coming. All this stuff plays a part in it. You know, they would explain to us that they did a walk around with the track and a walkthrough, explained all the rules. They would tell us, you know, when to arm our quads, and then they would have a tone play when everybody was due to go off to start the race and start flying. And so, you know, some of these guys, that sound, and before the horn would turn off, they were already flying through gates. And then you had other people like myself that the horn would go off and we might be finally leaving the mats where we were starting. And it was just such an experience. They were so professional. They had everything well announced, well organized. And let me tell you, when they started, there was no dilly-dallying around, which is something that our group would have to work on because we're used to just kind of like floating around, just doing things at our own pace. Man, these guys, they practice. And I mean like official practice rounds, right? And they call you up and you fly with those groups and you practice. And once practice was done, they started racing. And it was race 1, race 2, race 3, race 4. And they just hit it. If you weren't ready, you missed it. Which is when things start to make a lot of sense as to why they run the way they do and why some of the structure is the way it is. So you don't spend all day to do a 2-minute race, right? Yeah, very interesting. Very, very educational for us in a lot of ways. And these guys were perfect hosts the entire time. All of their pilots, all of their organizers are some of the best people I've ever gotten to talk with in the hobby, who really show you how things are supposed to go. So I think I speak on behalf of the entire noob crew, the entire FPV noob tube, when I say thank you to Fort Worth Quad Racing for everything that you did to organize this, everything that you put up with in regards to us, and for being such awesome hosts. And again, huge shout out and just huge thank you to Matt and Flylow. Okay. You really made our weekend and really showed us a lot of love. So now I'm going to leave some of that stuff and talk about some other cool stuff that happened. So it's Friday night. It's getting late, right? It's like midnight-ish. Some of us are thinking about leaving, going and getting some rest. And the door flies open at Matt's shop. And my jaw hit the floor. It was said Hendo. Just shows up, decides he's ready to work on some stuff. And where does he go? He goes to Flylow. Dude, I was having a man crush. And like, don't know the guy. It was nothing like that. But, you know, to watch him and Envy Astro rip around and just do the things they do and see the good time they have with it. You know, he's like a role model, right? He shows you how much fun there can be and how much support you can have doing that fun. And he just walks in the door. And so I'm kind of gushing, right? And after a couple days, because he was kind of with us the whole time we were there for the most part, you know, he's working on his stuff. He's talking with us. He giving presents, just being a cool guy, right? And so once I kind of got over the gushiness, just chatting with him, you know, that was really cool. Of course, he was spending a lot of time chatting with some other people. I was just kind of hanging there. And then to watch him fly, right? He went and got a quad put together, and this thing's running 6S, and he went into the alley out back behind Flylow and was tearing it around. Got some footage of that one. Look forward to that. Just watching people fly like that. Like Aaron is an awesome pilot to watch, and even he could take some things off of Hendo, right? Yeah, baby daddy's a real cool dude. So it was just awesome. Definitely has me thinking about some things for Noobapalooza 3, right? A little bit of planning, a little bit of preparation. Not that no planning and preparation went on. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. But, you never know how good it is until you get there. And I think we all learned some things that we'll take away that we can use to organize the next one. So looking forward to the next one being just a little smoother. But we've even thrown up the idea of possibly doing it in other places because last year, Aaron and Lauren went over to Fort Worth and they met Ben and Ashley, and that's where they hung out, and that was Noobapalooza 1. This year we went back to Fort Worth and we hung at Ben's, and those are good size. Sorry. I'm trying to keep my mojo going while I got it on my mind, but also keep up with you guys. Yeah, but we went back and we're throwing around the idea of doing it somewhere different next year, partly just to kind of mix things up, right? Because I think if we were to go back next year, we'd partake in a race, we'd definitely fly the bandos, but it would be really cool for Ben to be able to go other places and fly too. And Cam and some of those guys, we get Noel going and maybe get Hendershot out of his shell a little bit. And one of the things that I think all of us have to do just a little better is start saving just a little bit out of every check, $20, $10, and just putting it aside for the next year to cover like travel expenses and stuff. But where are you at, Volatronics? And I'll wait for that to come through because I know there's a little bit of lagginess going on. And excuse my sniffling. I'm fighting a little cold. Oh, okay. That's really cool. I'm in Delaware, so I went from Delaware to Dallas. Plummet and Night Train are in Michigan, so they went from Midland, Flint, Detroit. That's all close enough down to Dallas. And Tom Moore. Do you guys know Tom Moore? If you guys don't know that name, you can just leave now because you obviously haven't spent any time whatsoever in the FPV NoobTube Facebook group. Tom Moore was there. He came, he lives in Las Vegas, and he flew into Dallas, and he spent the weekend with us, and he flew and he raced, and oh my God, you want to talk about just almost undercover dad, right? He was making sure that everybody had what they needed. He was giving stuff away. He was helping people. He was just being there. He's, great to have conversation with. And I mean, he looks like one of those guys that if you pushed him wrong, he might wreck your week. But one of those people that you really have to push hard to push wrong. What a golden dude. And I mean, I love Tom anyway, but to meet him in person, I was almost gushing like when Ced walked in. The only difference is because I've gotten to talk with Tom Moore, I don't, just like Aaron, I didn't have that gushiness per se, but man, it was so great to meet Tom too. And I mentioned him like that because I didn't mention him and all the people prior. But yeah, so we came kind of from all over the place. And who's to say that next year it grows from like 12 people to maybe something a little bigger? Not hundreds of people, but just bigger. Nothing gushy here. I'm just some regular guy, with a big mouth and a lot of opinions. That's me. So yeah, other than that, I've really just been kind of getting over the cold, and now I'm just about back to normal and just kind of reacclimating to normal work life because it was so much packed into one weekend. And today I read something really interesting. And if any of you guys saw my post in the NoobTube about the guy that's now having a go-around with the FAA, I think it's something that we need to start paying attention to. And what I'm talking to more than anything is the regulation. It's something that a lot of us have a tendency to downplay. And I think what we're learning is that there's a lot of openness in the regulations and the way they're written to allow people to interpret this a lot of different ways. And even if somebody doesn't get their way with it, if the FAA isn't able to hold anything over your head, what you're going to discover is that they can still tie up your life and possibly some of your money with lawyers just defending yourself. So if you didn't catch that link, let me grab that real quick while I'm talking. Give me 1 second here. I apologize. Oh, let me find this. But, yeah, what it was. So there's a guy. Now, just like a lot of us, right? He's recording his flights. He's posting them on YouTube. He's posting them on AirViews, if you're familiar with AirViews. It's basically like YouTube, but without the possibility of monetization, but you get much, much better video quality, right? And what happened was somebody reported one of his videos on AirViews, and which flagged his account, and then somebody, when they reported that, somebody with the FAA decided they were going to review every one of his videos and find everything that he's done wrong that they can find proof of, and they're going to let him know that they saw it. Okay? Now, here's the thing. And give me a second. I'm still looking for that link, okay? You can sit here and you can say how stupid regulation is, and I'm going to agree with you as much as the next guy, right? I mean, the government, just in the last 25 years, you can't fish, you can't hunt, you can't fart, you can't do anything without being licensed to do it, right? And it gets a little ridiculous. But there's something to be said for regulation too, okay? You can be a Second Amendment lover and know that there's people out there that shouldn't have guns. You can love this hobby and say that, you know, we don't want a bunch of rules because it's a slippery slope, but there are people out there that are going to do dumb shit the second they get a chance. And they're the ones that do ruin it for all of us, right? And that's why we need that little bit of regulation. Even though we don't look at it that way, it actually protects us, okay? So what I'm getting at, this guy's name, if I recall right, is Joe or Joel. Again, I'm looking for this thing. Oh, crap. Well, I'll have to see. If any of you guys find it, post a link in the chat for me. What it amounts to, yep, much like the Canadian bridge diving. So yeah, FAA, and they essentially reached out to him and they told him, look, here is all the things you're doing wrong, and we know about it. Now, they're not taking him to court. They're not fining him. They're not doing any of that stuff. All they did was let him know that they saw that he was doing it, okay? And I think that's kind of cool because after this, I went to, and I haven't done it before, okay? I went to the FAA website and I started reading up, like, more hardcore. I was taking other people's words for it and reading the summaries before, but really reading up and for the purposes of really going through and seeing the words and the verbiage that the FAA uses on their website. And what it amounts to is this. If you're a hobbyist, as long as you are in Class G airspace, and what that means, to keep it simple, is that you can't fly anywhere where there are aircraft taking off, landing, or over active moving vehicles or over people that don't have cover over their heads. Okay? You can say it's stupid if you want. What it amounts to is safety. Because more than anything, safety always comes first, right? It's why you're not supposed to hand launch and hand catch quads. Because it's a good way to catch a prop to your face. So you just don't do it, right? You don't fly over aircraft. You don't fly in front of runways. You don't fly over airports. You don't fly over highways with cars driving all over. You don't fly over crowds of people because nobody wants to catch a prop to the car, the face, or the plane and end up in an even bigger accident or with a messed up moneymaker. And then there's other common sense things flown in there like you're not supposed to fly at night. and you're supposed to fly with a spotter and things like that, right? But here's the thing. As a hobbyist, there are none of these things saying that you kind of have to. It's just that the FAA is saying this is what you should do, right? And then this is where they differentiate things. They define that if you are a commercial entity or if you are using your aircraft for commercial reasons, that then you require licensing. And that is what we call the Part 107. Bingo. Now, here's the only thing that defines what is commercial or what is hobby, and that is if you are compensated. And this is why we're talking about this today. Because if any of us even has aspirations of posting our crap on YouTube and making even a penny from it, that is compensation. And if you are not registered for Part 107 and you have not passed your test and been licensed, you are in violation of U.S. law. Dude, I will do anything for a sandwich. Anything. But this is something that's worth talking about because there's a lot of people, right? They are not registered with AMA. They are not paying for the insurance and the stuff that's covered by that, right? And they should be. Because the AMA has a lot of liability damage as long as you are at AMA-sanctioned events and you're doing things you're supposed to be doing. AMA has your back in the case that you injure somebody or damage property. So that you are not personally liable for it, AMA will pick up the tab as long as you're following the rules, right? If we're going to be posting on Facebook and we're going to make sure that our videos can be monetized and we're getting our 1,000 subs and our 400 hours of watch time and we're getting to that spot, even if it's what you're aiming to do, you really need to look at getting your Part 107 certification. And if you're one of those people that's going to sit there and say that, I don't want to have to do that, and I'm not registering with AMA, and I'm not doing this and that, you have no one to cry to when somebody finds your channel and starts coming after you. But here's where the FAA right now, at least, they're taking a really cool stance at this as far as I'm concerned. What they're doing, if you have done something wrong, they're calling you out and they're giving you a chance to get it right, as long as it's nothing too extreme, right? They are even allowing you to come to them and say, hey, look, here's some things I did that I shouldn't have done. And they're allowing you to do that because doing those things can stop you from getting your Part 107 certification. So let's say you go through all your study material, you take your test, you pass it. They find out later that you did these things and you didn't take it to their attention, they can yank your certification. But if you go to them and say, hey, look, here's all those things I did, Boy Scouts honor, I'm never going to do them again, then they're cool. And I think that's a really cool stance to take on this stuff. Oh, that's cool. So now I'm on your TV. I'm famous. I'm famous. I'm on the TV. I'm on the TV. Anyway. So say what you want about regulation and rules and all that stuff. I think it's good. And I think that they've taken a really good stance on it. But I think that we have to be really careful what we're doing. Because it's not just copyright infringement and getting the audio turned off on your videos that you guys have to think about now. The FAA has just proven that they are watching and they are taking the hints that they're getting from other people or the reports, and they are following through with researching them. So we know a few people who've had some interaction with the FAA and now the Department of Homeland Security and some other things. And all those people except the guy in Las Vegas who decided that he thought he was smarter than everyone else has come out of it just fine. They've had interviews and had to meet people and had to let people look over their stuff, which in my mind can't be much different than going through an airport with this stuff and letting TSA finger fuck it, right? And now some of you guys have gotten to see that. It's really just not that big of a deal. You just pack your stuff up and take it, and they may want to look at it because if you look at the X-ray, it looks really suspicious. But Yeah. Those were the big things I wanted to talk about tonight that, have been on my mind, all except the Part 107 thing. Some of this other stuff I've wanted to talk about in some capacity, but a video ahead of time just isn't the best place. Yeah, see, that's really good advice, Volatronics. If and let's face it, guys, there aren't a ton of rules for what is considered safe flying by the FAA, right? There's only a couple, right? I mean, let's break this down. You have to fly in daylight. You have to fly line of sight. Now, what this means is that if you're flying line of sight without FPV goggles on, you have to be able to see the aircraft with your bare eyes. Or your glasses, but your bare eyes for all intents and purposes. Now, if you're flying FPV, there's an additional requirement that you need to be flying with a spotter, and that spotter must be able to maintain line of sight to your aircraft. All right? You have to fly less than 100 miles an hour. You cannot fly over 100 miles per hour. You cannot fly over 400 feet in altitude. Okay? And you cannot fly over people or over moving vehicles. Now, that's the really cool part of the 107 is this. If you want to be able to do any of those things, you can actually apply to get a waiver to do it. Yeah, so here's the thing, though. The ceiling goes away, for instance, if you're around a building. As long as you're in the airspace around that building, it can be 400 feet over the height of that building. But for all intents and purposes, I was just trying to keep it simple, because when you start trying to put in, all of the exceptions or the ways to interpret and break it down, it can get a little long-winded, right? So, I mean, those same rules that apply to the hobbyist apply to the commercial pilot. The only difference is to fly commercially, you have to be registered. The reason you have to be registered is if you break any of those rules, they want to know who to go after and who they can yank that registration from. Also, who they can hold any legal ramifications to if they need to. But it's really cool that you can get these waivers. Like, for instance, CNN. CNN has a waiver that allows them to fly over crowds of people and things like that without having to get anybody's permission. So, I mean, it opens up those possibilities for you if you decide you want to get Part 107. And it doesn't mean that you have to take compensation, but then you can. Yeah, well, I guess that's going to be left to be open for interpretation by the rest of us, right? So, the last item I should probably talk about in case anyone's watching, tutus for tatas. One of the things we learned at Noobapalooza was that trying to organize 12 people to do anything at the same time is like herding kittens. It's a losing battle. I mention this because we did not get our group shot done with the tutus because there were just way too many things going on at any given time. And people were just all over the place. And when we all were together, we didn't have them, or we weren't thinking about it, or we were too busy, or we left them somewhere else, or it was a complete debacle. So we tried to send everybody on their way with their tutu. I have at home 4 spare tutus, which means there are probably 4 people who attended Noobapalooza who did not get theirs, and I will make sure that I mail them out. And then it is up to you individually to don your tutu in public and fly your quad. This does not count, as far as I'm concerned, in a backyard. You got to be in the park or the mall or somewhere public. That's how I'm going to roll anyway. And then we're going to have some fun with it. I'm going to go ahead and sign for the one I wear. I'm going to sign my name inside of it, legibly, because I want people to be able to see this. And I'm going to find somebody out there in the Facebook group or out on YouTube or the internet, and I am going to mail my tutu to them so they can wear it in public and then record themselves flying their quad in their tutu, being pretty, and they can sign their name in it and mail it on to somebody, and just to see how far these things can go. So I think that'll be really cool. I'm going to push you guys to do that. All right. I'm checking Messenger. I'm going to press you guys to do the same, but I'm not going to force you. So oh, man. Ben's got me on the television. That is just no good. And I miss you too, big guy. Miss all you guys. That's right. No pants dance off with the no hands party stance. Pants off, dance off. All right, guys. So unless there's anything you guys want to chat about, that's about the end of the topics I wanted to cover. I didn't want to make this a super, super long thing or drag it on all night. There's just some things I felt that I wanted to talk about and put out there, and I'm sure I'll get some more feedback on after this thing gets published to YouTube. Really enjoyed the weekend with you guys. Really enjoyed chatting with you other guys. I'll do a better job coming forward or in the future with letting you guys know the plans for the live streams, just so people can partake if they want. More than happy to have, the 4 to 6 people in here. That's fine. So, well, I'm going to get back to watching the last couple minutes of Back to the Future. We're going to have a couple great Scots with the Doc Brown. Watch Marty shake his way off screen. And I'm going to wish you guys a happy crashing.